I've had this YouTube channel for over 4 years. And one of the very first videos I did 4 years ago was the cost of living in Tampa. And you know what? Things have changed. So I've decided, let's go back and revisit that topic. So that's what I'm talking about today. Stick around. Hi, welcome back. My name's Joe Brown. I'm a realtor with Century 21, List with Beggins, located in South Tampa. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, I've had this channel for over 4 years. Shoot, it's going on 5 years in just a couple months. And one of the very first videos I did talked about the cost of living in Tampa. And I thought, let's relook at that issue, right? And that there are several different factors to consider. And not only will I talk about cost of living, but just talk about some pros and cons of living in this area. So number one, let's talk about housing. And if you live here, you complain about the cost of housing, right? But compared to the national stage, Tampa's really below. It's about 3% below the national average. Now, of course, that depends what area of town you live, the size of the home, what neighborhoods, whether it's a condo or a townhouse, right? All those factor into the cost. But just across the board, housing is about 3% less than the national average. If you look at utilities, right, utilities are about 2% lower, right? So utilities right at national average, just below. Healthcare, this surprised me. Healthcare is actually quite a bit lower than the national average. Maybe it's the sun that we get. I don't know. But yeah, healthcare has a lower cost. What also surprised me, groceries are a little bit higher than the national average, right? Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And if you think about that, it's really the groceries that we pay for weekly or in some cases daily. That's what affects our pocketbook the most. And I talked about utilities, transportation. Gas prices are on the national average, but I'm going to talk about transportation when we talk about the pros and cons as well. I found a great website, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes below, and it's called PayScale with a / cost of living. And you can compare two cities, and it gives you a graphic display of, and even a number of how these cities match up. So for example, you can say in Tampa, or let's say you're coming from, I use the example, let's say I'm coming from New York City, and I make $50,000 a year in New York City. To have that same level of living in Tampa, how much do I have to earn? And it happened to be $28,000. But so you can do that, where you're coming from and what you make, and then what you have to earn in Tampa. It's really a very cool tool, very cool website. Again, it's payscale.com. It's a cost of living tool, and I'll put a link in the show notes below. But let's talk about some pros and cons of living in this area. So number one, Tampa is in Florida. I think maybe 95% of the people know that, right? Tampa's in Florida. Florida has no income tax, and that is very attractive for a lot of people. So that's number one. Tampa is a growing economy, right? Tampa is expanding. But there's also job growth, right? So there are different industries, certainly the technology industry, healthcare industry, finance industry, that is expanding, which is helping the economic base in this area. So for those looking for the jobs and job markets, Tampa is attractive. Also, and I found this quite intriguing. We talk about home values going up from 2020. So right around COVID to where it is now. Well, a report I saw went back to 2015. So in the past 10 years, property values have gone up 125%. That's astounding. Now, again, not every property, and it depends where that property is located, the condition of the property. But yeah, we've had some great appreciation in property value. What we do have, just thinking about living in Florida, and this is why a lot of athletes like coming down here. We typically have warm weather most of the year. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we had, 3 days below 50. And some of us really enjoyed that, and some of us did not enjoy that. But typically, we're able to enjoy outdoor sports and practice and so forth. So the warm weather is attractive for people, right? If you're in Tampa, you're 30, 35 minutes from the beautiful Gulf beaches. Well, one thing that's cool, and this goes back to my days as a principal, we have a very diverse culture. I didn't realize it, and tragically it was because of one of my students died, but the community of people from Ghana, there's a large group here. But in my school, we had 22 different nationalities. So very diverse community, which is great. It makes the area culturally rich. But now let's get to some cons, okay? And there are some drawbacks to living in this area. Number one, especially to find affordable homes, you have to go out of the city into the suburbs. And because of the population growth, there's traffic congestion, right? So maybe going home, you're in traffic for an hour. And so that goes back to fuel cost, right? If you're sitting in traffic, idle, stuck in traffic, you're burning fuel, which just adds to the cost. So that is a drawback. And even though Tampa has a public transportation system, it's really not as robust as some other cities. And so that would take a lot of capital expense, infrastructure cost to upgrade our public transportation. So that's one of the cons is the public transportation and traffic congestion. Another is even though our housing is below the national average, it's increasing. And in some cases, it's increasing faster than people's paychecks, which makes housing costs and affordability go down. Or housing costs go up and affordability go down. The housing costs, price acceleration is a detriment to people moving to this area. Even though they may want to, they may have to go further out. When I say further out, I'm talking north to Brooksville, east to Lakeland, even though Lakeland's being built up, south to Palmetto. if you were here, you know, in September we had a couple of hurricanes. Hurricane season runs from June to November. And that is a real threat that we face. And hopefully it's just, okay, we know it's hurricane season and nothing's going to hit us. This year we had 2 affect us. So that is a factor. That's one of the cons of living where we do. And then there's a higher debt to income ratio. And again, this goes back to people's pay isn't increasing as fast as other expenses, whether it's home expenses, grocery expenses, gas expenses, insurance, property tax, right? A lot of those things are going up faster than people's paychecks. So that my debt to how much I make is going up. And listen, people have to be able to afford to live where they live. So there are so many benefits to living in Florida and in Tampa. I've lived here my entire life. Tampa is an attractive place to live. People are moving here. It's one of the top cities for people to start a business and start careers. But affordability and being able to pay for the things we want to do when we live here, that'll be a challenge. So listen, I hope you found this informative. Next week will be the first week of February, so I'm going to look back at the real estate market for January and see if we see any trends emerging, okay? So thank you for being with me today, and until next week, take care.